I'm Andy,
And I'm Roger,
and welcome to The Middle,
where we try to have thoughtful conversations
about awkward topics.
on our search to find the middle.
That's fatphobic.
I don't build wall. I just own halfway to Seawall.
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
I act as if God exists.
Put your masks on.
How dare you! You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
G'day, Roger.
Andy, how you doing?
Oh, yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. Are you all excited for the Taylor Swift weekend upcoming?
It's really, I don't know, I think something's happened. She's just so much bigger, you know what I mean? It just, from what I understand, she has come up now and then on how, when we're talking about Spotify and Wrapped and all these things, but I feel like the frenzy and the energy around her is very, is right up there with, like Beatles, Michael Jackson, all these kind of crazy top tier kind of performers. And I don't know where it's come from.
Yeah, I think there's just something about everyone knowing and being into the same thing, right? At the same time, there's some sort of hive effect going on. Like,
because you're a Swiftie, aren't you? You're a bit of a Swiftie.
I did have a special message from Tay in my Spotify Unwrapped, but like, it is what is objectively the appeal, though, right? Let's just like,
well, yeah, maybe
because...
sell me because I'm not a Swiftie.
No. Well, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I'm trying to walk through what is the appeal. Like, as in, I don't know why she is as popular as she is. Like, because I don't think the music is that great. Like, I mean, it's popular music, right? So it's the kind of stuff that, top 40 stuff, right? It's poppy, it's catchy, but like, it's not necessarily deep, or we're not talking about like Dark Side of the Moon here, right? And on the other hand, like, Michael Jackson, like, he could dance in this really incredible way, and he was just so weird as well. So there was that whole spectacle about that and the mystique and all that. Whereas she's like, her whole thing is like, she's just an everyday girl, right, kind of thing. So I don't know. I just think there's just been like stars align for her, such that at this particular moment there's that whole Super Bowl thing right off the Grammys.
You're referring
and
to
it just
the,
so happens
to the psyops that's happening.
The psyops? No, you'll have to elaborate.
Well, there's this whole conspiracy theory going on that actually there's a psychological operation, special operations by and she's actually a CIA plant, and this whole thing. Even Travis, her boyfriend, who is obviously a gridiron star. Has all been manufactured to him down to them winning the Super Bowl so that she could get to that point and endorse Biden and rock the vote.
Well, of course, a good country girl like her should have stuck to country and Republican Party politics and endorsed Donald Trump, right?
She obviously didn't take her warnings from the Dixie Chicks. Oh, sorry, the Chicks now.
So, like in Sydney this week was one of the few places that she was, photographed out and about in Sydney, was at the very restaurant that I took my wife for our anniversary just a couple of months ago.
Really?
Or even not even that, 6 weeks ago. And it's also in the same suburb where I live now. And even that trip to this little... it's actually a really small restaurant. It's like a little Italian place, but it's like, I don't mean to undersell what this place is. This is this will top, kind of lists of, Sydney's best restaurants, right? So we're not talking the family, the Belmonte's Pizza style, local Italian suburban restaurant. This is, high end cuisine sort of thing. But even just making this unannounced visit to this local kind of restaurant around the corner from where I live, it's just hundreds of people around, and I just, but the thing that gets me is it would suck to be as famous as she is. You could not even go out for one meal and have like not have like a horde of people.
Well,
Yeah, mob
it's
you.
definitely a strange relationship, right? Because they are her fans and they are the reason for your success, but they also suffocate you, and they demand everything from you, every ounce of privacy. But I do think that looking at someone like Taylor Swift, which, to be honest, is, just like a white regular girl next door, right? With, blonde hair and stuff. I would have thought it'd be quite easy for her to travel incognito. Like, I don't think she has that distinctive a look that she couldn't, tie her hair up, wear a baseball cap, and then you'd instantly notice her. So I think that might work in her favor. I've got a question though. So, because to me, every time a star comes to Sydney, they always end up in, Surrey Hills or Potts Point or something at the latest, restaurant that gets 3 stars or whatever. And it's always I'm always feel a little bit let down by that. So my question to you is, if you had Tay-Tay for a night, and it was your job to be like, how Anthony Bourdain goes to these cities and just has a local guide and it's like, show me the best food. Where would you take her?
I'd take her up to my my house and give her pizza and brisket.
Mate. You have her for dinner, not for the night. All right, you can't take her back to your house.
No, I don't mean that. Just to be clear,
wouldn't that be creepy? You take her up the stairs, and you've got like her songs playing and everything. And it's like, and you've got like her fan message on Spotify, her video just like on loop.
Just feel like, could you just say?
And she just
could we have a selfie?
She just hears the click of the door locking behind her.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me work through this one. So, all right. I don't think there's a way out of this framing now. That's going to work for me.
Just
no. Look, I
make
think
her a homemade pizza with your family. It's only an hour up the coast. We're going to take a drive.
We can get the no. But in all seriousness, honestly, in her situation, isn't like the best way to deal with this situation just to have like dinners in your hotel room, because this would be a pain in the ass, and like just as a absolutely, she has to put up the facade of that she loves her fans so much, right? But we all know deep down inside she's like, oh, for fuck's sake, I do not want to deal with these people, and that's fine, that's an absolute natural reaction, and in fact the fact that she can power through all of her interactions and hasn't taken a misstep or in her career, I can't think of some controversy involving her, right, where she has come across as the perpetrator. She's been the victim, the whole Kanye West thing, right? But I can't think of a scenario where she's been portrayed as disrespectful to her fans.
Yeah, you're skirting around the question though. I mean, where would you take her? Obviously putting the mobbing aside, I do believe though, if she went randomly with you, Andy, to go to somewhere unannounced and she had the incognito mode on, you could potentially get away with it. Where would you take her?
Okay, so I'm trying to unpack in my mind what you're actually getting at with this question. Are you is this a question to unpack the best restaurants in Sydney?
No,
is
the best meal experience for a celebrity, right? If you want to give a hidden gem, it can be down and dirty. It can be the kebab. What is it?
Oh, she absolutely should be taken to Bunnings for a sausage sandwich, right?
There you go. That's what I wanted.
I in my mind, I've got I'm thinking back to those videos of Michael Jackson wearing a hijab or whatever, just so he doesn't get seen, right, in public, and he can go and spend lay $30,000 on some Persian artifacts or something, in that Martin Bashir documentary.
Oh, that was an epic scene. I mean, how many ornate Egyptian vases does one man need? But anyway,
but I do want to unpack for a second, what is peak level fame, right, or what is optimal level fame? Because I think the fame she's got now detracts from the things that she can do. Now you're talking about she could wear a baseball cap and all that. So she could wear a baseball cap, but someone would recognize her and tell everyone, "Oh, it's Taylor Swift," and suddenly it would be. And I think that's what happened the other night in Surrey Hills at the restaurant she went to. So I don't think that is actually possible. I think she goes to the supermarket. You know, like some of these celebs go to the Grove Shopping Center in LA. It's like a famous like celebrity haunt, right? And in fact, they go there to be photographed sometimes. But yeah, I think with her, like, she can't just go there with the like,
I don't
the
know,
baseball
though.
cap on. Like,
She's got that
people
kind of
will
girl
notice
next
her.
door look. I think if anyone can get away with it, she can get away with it.
No, but she is next level. Like, she ain't no like Alyssa Milano or anything,
Oh
right?
my
She's
God! Don't you dare slander Milano.
she's next
Especially,
level.
you should
Like,
know
she
better, Andy. She was like peak crush period for us growing up. Why would you do that to her? Charmed,
No,
man.
but-
I love Charmed.
but she's orders of magnitude more, right? Like, she is probably Michael Jackson level fame, right?
Yeah, look, I'm not arguing about her fame. I'm just saying that she doesn't look like Michael Jackson, which would be very hard to hide the weirdness of Michael Jackson's physique or look. She just looks like a normal white girl. And that would afford her some more ability to, like, dress down, dress differently.
No, but even my dad would recognize Taylor Swift.
Guarantee that is not true.
I'm pretty sure he would.
I think we should do a boomer lineup of like Swift look like. And I guarantee you, their hit rate will be far worse than you think. My dad definitely wouldn't.
Well, okay, that's not even the relevant question, right? The relevant question is, would 1 out of like 100 people who would see her in the shops recognize her and make a big deal about it, ask for her autograph, whatever? And absolutely yes.
Andy, you are
At least one
really
would.
skipping around this question of where to find Sydney's best kebab.
I said, like Bunnings sausage sandwich.
Just the reason I say that though, Andy, is because I don't remember if you remember last time Justin Bieber came to Sydney, and he had a similar thing, but he did a much more kind of down to earth thing where he was actually caught at Charlie's chicken shop. So he went to a really low key chicken shop in Mossman, and there was a queue of girls out there trying to get a look at him, but he was just having like a chicken roll. And I thought, I really like that. He's just gone out like a normal person to, one of Sydney's chicken franchises.
So I know that like Justin Bieber would have like among a certain cohort of like 13-year-old girls a big kind of following, but just the orders of magnitude between her and Justin Bieber, I think
Bieber's
it has
huge.
to be called out. No. She's doing like 4 shows at a core stadium. He did, I think, 1, but like more relevant is that she could have sold like another 10 if she had long enough here, right? She is orders of magnitude more than Bieber ever was, right? And I honestly, like, I think that's the truth, right? And so I think the practicality of it's completely different. Like, she's got to have. It's a bit like the US president can't go out and get like McDonald's because he can't even like get in a car without like the Secret Service and the 10-car kind of motorcade. And it's the same with her, right? She needs her security. Like, it's past the threshold that you can do those sneaky little trips, right?
What privacy do you think the commander-in-chief gets? Does he get to go to the toilet by himself? Or is it like Big Brother? Is that like the only place where there's no surveillance? Or is there even surveillance in the toilet?
Well, I did watch the American Story with Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, and not according to that series.
That does surprise me that there was enough privacy for that to occur.
Can I ask, your daughter, is she a Swiftie?
No, too young.
It's not come.
It's not come. She doesn't actually she doesn't idolize any musicians. Maybe Pink, and that's probably more through influences from adults. It's probably the closest thing she got to understanding like a performer and actually being a fan. But no, not really. And I actually think that, and one of the reasons I'm a little bit skeptical about Swifties is that I've actually never met a male Swiftie. Like, I still think it's like a very gendered thing. And I don't think that's fair. You're probably the closest thing that I've I've met that actually appreciates the music.
But do you know what it is, right? Like, I had this moment where I saw videos at her concert, right? Because they're showing up on my bloody social media feed, right? So I see way too much stuff. And you see, like, the videos of the crowd, and it's still very, like, at least certain segments. Like, I've seen a lot of, like, couples go and stuff. And then you've got the whole that whole meme of like dads being like super into, in support of their daughters, like really supporting like the whole thing, right? But and that's like those are good news stories and all that sort of stuff. But then like largely it's like, and they're not teenage girls; they're actually adult women, but nonetheless it's a very girly kind of environment. And so I see these videos and I'm like, funnily enough, my wife was the other week was looking at like the marketplace to see if she could get a ticket, right? And so I was contemplating like there was this possibility that if as remotely as and she never got it, but like it would be this remote possibility that I'd be going. I was thinking, would I feel a little bit weird going to this concert? That's like, is it appropriate for like a middle-aged man to go to like this concert setting where it's all it's like, is this a space that it's the equivalent of probably like the 180 degrees opposite of like, one of those like, I don't know, really blokey male like death metal concert sort of things, right?
Yeah.
Is this like a women's space, right? Is it a male space, right?
I think it would be safe to say that the line for the female toilets would be in shambles, absolute shambles, and you might as well open up the male toilets at that stage, right? Like it's just sitting there empty, a few chaperones here and there.
I think it's a little bit less stark than the picture you're painting. Like I think it's not as there's a lot of like dudes who like are quite amenable to her music, right?
Yeah, and
even
those type of dudes are welcome in the female toilets, man. But seriously, I'm being serious. I've not met, as popular as she is, she does not have the broad appeal across the genders like, say, a Michael Jackson did.
Okay, so last year I went to the infamous Def Leppard Motley Crue concert tour, right? And which was horrible for reasons which I won't go into right this minute. But I did hear like in the background, like in this sort of hyper sort of masculine kind of environment, apart from the 60-year-old woman who's responded to Tommy Lee's calls to show some boobies sort of thing.
Free the nip.
They were below the belt by that stage, but but anyway, I digress. The background chatter I heard about, Taylor Swift, music sucks. Like they were kind of like, they just had to kind of make clear that, yeah, I'm like, I'm a tough bloke. I wouldn't. Can you imagine going to like Taylor Swift? But like that's such a pissweak kind of. That's the kind of stuff you say when you've got like a small dick, right? And you've got to prove yourself.
It's
somehow,
like a
right?
doubling down kind of thing.
Yeah, and so I think for a lot of guys, right, who might listen to pop. I don't really listen to pop music, right? Just to be clear, right? Like I'm a bit of a old school kind of classic rock kind of guy, right? As we know from this podcast. But nonetheless, like I think it is disingenuous to somehow kind of take something away from her as an artist when just because like she's a little bit girly, right? Oh. Or because like her fans are a little bit girly. And I think guys, like dudes, tend to react to the girly side of it. And so I'm like, this macho bloke, I wouldn't, which I think is like, a little bit old school and maybe
I don't know
you need to get over, right?
If it's, I understand what you're saying, that you're not gay, you're just gay for Taylor. But it's, at the same time, man, it's not just the fact that she embodies like a lot of feminine energy, which you've already kind of admitted to, right? Like that's undeniable at her shows and that kind of content. It's actually like her lyrics. She sings from a very, very female kind of perspective. It's kind of journalistic in that way. She's talking about breakups and relationship things, and that's why it's so inviting. And like I think the thing you forget now because she's so big is that she essentially won a lot of fans because of her dorkiness. She was kind of like a counter pop. She wasn't like the popular girl. She wasn't the cheerleader. She was actually embraced her kind of dorkiness. Now she kind of literally is a cheerleader going out with Travis. But that was quite a recent turn of events. So look, I kind of get it, but I think that the music is not made for a male audience. If males appreciate it, I think I agree with you. There shouldn't be any kind of thing, do what makes you happy. But at the same time, I don't think it's genuine. It's like it's okay not to like it as a man because it's not really made for you. I think, like in simple terms.
But see, Roger, what you're forgetting is that if she was a man, she'd be the man.
So sick of them coming at me again. 'Cause if I was a man, then I'd be the man.
All right,
I'd
enough.
be the man.
Enough Taylor for now, but okay. I think it's my turn to hit up a listener question. And I'm really just glancing at it, that's why I'm laughing. Okay, here we go. In capitals. Worst episode ever. Period. Just
Oh, dear.
just heard your chat about tax cuts, and honestly, I can't believe how out of touch you two sound. Flaunting your high income lifestyles while defending policies that benefit the wealthy. You clearly don't understand the struggle of regular folks. How can you sit there in your bubble criticizing Anthony Albanese's decision to redirect tax cuts to those who actually need it? It's about time someone looked out for the average Australian instead of padding the pockets of the rich. What's your justification of opposing measures that aim to address income inequality and support lower income earners? And they left no name, unfortunately.
Okay, well, I'm happy to accept the charge that we sounded a little bit out of touch. And I must admit, when I was editing the episode, I thought, we probably could have done with a little bit more padding and kind of I mean, we're trying to be the middle, right? So we're trying to present both sides, and I think that's maybe why we took the slightly more critical approach, because I think it is almost like the obvious thing to kind of like hate on higher income earners, right? And I think, to be fair, like, I think if you go word for word in the transcript, I think we did acknowledge like all of the things that our listeners has pointed out. So I think, I want to kind of accept, like, from a tone perspective, we could have been a little bit more maybe understanding of like just how tough it is for the lower end of the spectrum, rather than harping as much as we did on broken promises and all that sort of stuff. But that said, I think just from like, why would we take that approach, or why would we even sort of entertain the notion that higher income earners should get a tax cut? It is that, like, eventually you've got to kind of think about questions like, if you want to have a productive economy, does it make sense to be saying that people who might, for example, want to stretch themselves in their career, should they be paying like $1 in every $2 to the government in tax? And should we be like rewarding effort, right? And I think that's kind of, where, or at least where I was coming from, in terms of trying to sort of acknowledge that, yes, some people earn less money, but some people work twice as hard as the average person. I mean, some people work 60 hours a week and they might earn higher incomes, but they actually give up their time. They've given up other things in their life. They've worked hard, and it's not fair to go hand in pocket to those people and say, look, sorry, we don't care that you've worked hard. We're just going to take your money from you. And so I think that's what I would say, is that it is quite a high marginal rate of tax to be paying close to, and it's not quite 50%, but like, these are the kinds of figures that, I mean, it's the best part of, 40 cents in the dollar sort of thing. So that's the way a marginal income tax system works. But it starts to have very punishing effects on people who are in those higher income levels and might also have other obligations and commitments. So completely agree. It's very, very tough for lower middle income earners. And I think, on balance, you'd probably say it wasn't a terrible decision. It was probably the right decision in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I don't think we should have this idea that people earning over $150,000, can continue to, like, they're like this bottomless pit of money. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, that was good, Andy. I think there's a problem with you going first. I just save up all my wrath. And look, I think that what's really interesting to me when we do get a negative comment from one of our listeners, it's whether they will still listen. And I've often wondered that. I don't know if you've kind of, it's crossed your mind, Andy, where when you listen to something, you almost need to be agreeing with it. Like agreeing with what your favorite podcast presenter says. And the moment they say something you don't agree with, you stop listening. And I think that's what I'm really wondering here, because have we lost this listener, right? And I hope not, because if you're only listening to things that you already agree with, it's kind of missed the point of the middle. But I do acknowledge that's really hard. And I have felt times where I've listened to one of my favorite podcasters, and they've said something that does not gel with me at all. And it's like Ruben said that time, I kind of have to take a break from them for a couple of weeks because I'm angry at them. Because really, like, how can they feel so differently from me when usually I'm like, listening to myself talk? And so I'm actually really curious about that. And I hope you are open to opposing views. Like I've said before, it's not the entirety of what we say that gets us into trouble. And to your point, Andy, if you listen to everything, we've already acknowledged certain elements of what this listener is talking about. It's certain turns of phrases, and it's the tone and certain things that stick with the listeners. Now, I don't think, and this is my problem with the situation, that now instead of being able to criticize what Anthony Albanese and his government did in terms of breaking a promise, it's now mixed in and conflated with this idea that it was, how can you go against something that helps the poor and the needy? And that's why I think it's so manipulative, right? I think it's so hard to unwind the two. And I'm not talking about, just something that was implied or whatever. Before the election, he was pinned down with laser-like detail, saying, answer this question, will you change? Will you support the stage 3 tax cuts in their current form? And he said yes on multiple occasions. He said, I could not be any clearer. I will not be changing them. And then he changed them. Right? And I think my point was, regardless of where you sit, and of course, everyone can see that it's a good thing to give people in need money. Feel free to do that whenever you want. Personally. Get on your bike, go on. But even you can see that is a problematic behavior for a politician to be doing. Right? And he was not upfront. You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? You can't mislead voters in that way. You might not have got in if you were honest with voters. You might have lost that swing. And this is also the insidiousness of a small target strategy, that you're standing kind of for nothing, right? And I think that was my main point. It was criticism of that and that behavior, not this idea that whether overall it's a good thing to take a little bit from the wealthy and give it to the poor, right? So I think I just want to reiterate that. And then just for the record, documenting my general resent of us flaunting a high income lifestyle. I don't think that is fair or is accurate. I'm currently living in my parents' house. I own no property. I am not part of the problem here. In whatever kind of picture that you've painted of me swilling, champagne in my penthouse somewhere. This is not the case. This is not the reality. So, that's my response.
Okay, very good. So I think you have an activity for us.
I do have something that I wanted to share from. I was at a cafe the other day, and I was there by myself, right? So I've got a bit of time at the moment, and I've got a lot of webinars to get through and different stuff like that at work, like a glut of these kind of things. So I was there by myself. And when you're at a cafe by yourself, you can then obviously do a bit more people watching. It just happens naturally. And I quite like it, right? It kind of, I feel like I'm an undercover sociologist or whatever. And there was this couple next to me. And, well, let's just call them husband and wife for now. The wife was like talking to the husband. And the husband was looking down at his phone, right? And he was kind of like, giving the nods and things like that. And then the woman just cracked it, and she was like, "John, you're unbelievable. You just never. What was I just saying?" And the guy was like, "Oh, you," and he like stumbled on it, and he's just like, "You never fucking listen." And it's like, you're always on your phone. It's like, is there anyone else here around? And it's like, you never listen. It's like, had this full on kind of like pent up frustration that just vented out. And I was just like, oh, baby, this is getting spicy. So I ordered a second coffee and just kept on listening. And, it just got me thinking, because you've been talking to me a little bit about listening to material that is made for women, especially Clementine Ford's book. And I've noticed, even when we caught up on the other weekend, you've just kind of said, oh, yeah, this is the reason why men are shit. And you had this kind of like thing. And ever since you said that to me, I've just been noticing little elements like that where it probably is exacerbated a bit more in long-term couples because men get more complacent. But I've been noticing that little stuff that's like, this guy was he was on the ropes. He was like trying to dodge and block the punches as best as he could. But he was guilty as the day is long. And I was just wondering whether you've got any reflections on, after reading such a scathing assessment of manhood, whether you've felt yourself being a bit more shit lately.
Well, thank you. That's a great opening line. But I might just add that this came up because I think I sent you a message. I was in the drive-thru at McDonald's, and the car in front of me had a bumper sticker with these two blokes in it in a Ford Fiesta, but the dude had thought it would be a funny idea to get rid of the E, so it was instead called the Fista, and his bumper sticker was said, "Camel towing, we get that jam out of your clam." And
sorry, it's not the. It's not that it's funny, isn't it? It's just Australian comedy. It's just you can't tell whether we're the best people or the worst people.
But yeah. But I took a photo and sent it to you, and I think I had the tag Clementine Ford. She's right though, isn't she? And of course the book I was I finished it now, but was reading at the time was called I Don't, which is why women shouldn't get married and why marriage is a really bad idea. And basically the thesis of the book is that blokes are just really bad and really immature, and she kind of writes it in this way where it's look, I want to give her the benefit of the doubt and say there is some underlying kind of coherence to her arguments.
I don't think she deserves that, to be honest, but anyway.
No. Well, I think I don't look, underlying coherence is not what comes to mind when I read the book, but nonetheless there are some like humorous anecdotes of basically really stupid things blokes have done, right? The example of the classic best man's speech at the wedding about mistake number 368, wife over here, like stuff like that, right? Where men just
all right,
just really don't take it seriously.
Yes. So I think what we should do as like a bit of a speed round on this kind of thing of are men really shit is going through this AI generated list. So this is the 10 most annoying things clueless men do from the female's point of view, from a woman's point of view. And so what we're going to do is pretty much go through it. I'll call it out. And then what I really want us to comment on is whether we think this is something that men own, so men actually do more than women, or something that actually is equally done, regardless of sex.
All right, hit me.
So the first one, not listening, failing to pay attention during conversations or forgetting what was said. Male only or both genders?
I think men do this more in the way that, in the more literal sense, but I think women do it as equally in other ways that. No. Well, maybe I'm not here to say taxes. I think blokes do it because they're zoning out and they don't have kind of the patience or attention span often for some of the conversations. But I think so they're worse and more guilty than on that front. But I think equally women, I think it's equal measure that men and women make equal lack of effort to truly understand what the other person's saying and where they're coming from and what they really mean.
Yeah. I think as it's written, there's no doubt that men zone out more. And I just think that that's just a generalization that I'm comfortable with. But I do kind of admit that I agree that this idea of willingly not understanding can be a bit of a on both sides. All right, number 2. This one, obviously, leaving the toilet seat up. A classic, but it's still at the top of every woman's list.
Well, definitely men do that more than women, except we must be inclusive in our definition of women now to include women who have penises. So at least of the cisgendered men, yes.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they just came up with a slightly different name, like the peni or something, just to kind of soften it up a little bit. Look, I have a really clear stance on this. I think that it does make sense to always put the toilet seat, the cover down, and then everyone starts from a zero base, rather than this kind of battleground of making men or women try to preempt the needs of their partner or whoever is in the house. So that's kind of my view, and also an added benefit that you don't, every time you flush the toilet with the seat up, there is a 1.5 meter high and wide plume of particles that you are inhaling. All right, number 3, poor hygiene, neglecting personal cleanliness and grooming.
Well, definitely men spend less time on that front. Definitely.
Yeah, I can't believe you're even pausing. Men 100% have poorer personal hygiene. It's just, if you've ever been into any kind of changing room, not even a gym changing room, just anything, even the most professional of settings, you've seen some stuff, man. You've even being in the toilets, the sounds that come out of some men and the grunting and just the blowing and the spitting and.
But see, we've never been in a female toilet, right? How do we know what?
It's 100% that one's on men, and yes, women can be untidy with their makeup and their toiletries and all this kind of stuff, but when it comes to hygiene and stuff, that is something that I think men definitely have the edge on.
But was it you that was telling me the story about the women's bathroom incident in the workplace where there was some?
And that's but the reason that story is shocking is because you don't expect women to be like that. But in a male toilet, it's like if you go into a public male toilet, you almost expect piss everywhere, right? And all sorts of things. It's just that you're kind of surprised that women would be the same in some settings, all right? So that's my go. All right. The 4th one is explaining things in a condescending way, assuming the other party doesn't know what they're talking about.
That's the mansplaining thing. So,
but that's not the question though. Is the question that both parties do that, both genders do that?
I think men do that more than women. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I tend to agree. Number 5. Not picking up after themselves, leaving clothes, dishes, and other items out instead of putting them away.
See, I'm not gonna jump in and say men for that one, because I have seen many bathrooms in many households where I know that the shit that's left around in the bathroom is not the blokes, it's the woman of the house, right? So I'm not so sure that's as clear cut as the trope would suggest.
Yeah, I agree. I think this one's on both sides, but in different contexts. I think that in the spaces that are much more female dominated, so the bathroom, I think that just the sheer number of toiletries and cosmetics and things means that that happens, and also in some bedrooms. And you only have to see, if you do a walk through a college dorm or something, you would see that they're both horrific on both sides of the gender aisle. But I would say that something about when it comes to this idea of sloppiness, I still think men have the edge, right? Because I think standards are generally lower in a man. Say, for example, if there's a nice hamper sitting there, a nice laundry hamper, men are not going to worry as much if a sock is like hanging over the lip or on the floor. That's not going to keep a man up at night, right? But it can cause significant stress to a particular type of woman.
I think there is also a distinction between tidiness and cleanliness.
Yeah, I'm big on that.
So I think, on average, women are more interested in cleanliness, and I think men can be interested in tidiness, but not necessarily cleanliness. And I think that's an extension of the personal hygiene thing. But the other thing I just wanted to add is that this book that I've just finished reading, this I Don't Take Down of How Bad Men Are, is that a lot of the things described in this book are very much presented like this is why men suck and this is why women don't need men. But for at least a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it, I was going to say, yes, this is a trait, this is a thing that goes on and it's not good, but like in at least 40% of the population, this role would be reversed, right?
Yeah.
It's just that on average it might happen more frequently. But this is ultimately about personalities, right? You have a clean person and a not so clean or tidy person, and it just kind of causes friction and problems.
Totally agree. And that's what I want to kind of get with some of these things, right? Like whether it's just a general personality trait, or like a temperaments thing, a conscientiousness thing. So let's keep on going down. So and just on this topic, I am actually counter to this. So actually, I care much more about cleanliness than I do about tidiness. So dirty dishes, anything that will attract insects or cockroaches, I can't stand. I can't tolerate food out, but I can tolerate some clutter in other parts of the house. But anyway, that's just me. All right. This is another one. So number 7, taking up too much space, physically or in conversations, not making room for others.
This kind of can be an extension of the mansplaining thing, right? Where it's
let's limit to physical.
Well, you have the whole trope of what is it? The
manspreading.
Manspreading.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, right? Dudes are bigger on average, right? Like, yes, of course. Like, you've got these like daddy long legs. Like, you want to like let them out, right?
So
yeah, dudes are worse. But like, I think there's a case to be made for like, why must we be like, and I know for women there's the other thing of like, if you've got like a skirt on, or you're wearing a dress, you have to do that, to be modest and all this sort of stuff. But like, which is probably somewhat outdated, which blokes don't kind of have to worry about, right? But yeah, I mean, like, I think sometimes, maybe not in a really obnoxious way, but like, what would be like manspreading to one person might just be like, fuck, I just need to sit comfortably to another.
I actually saw a perfect real life example of this in the wild on City Rail last week. And it was so on the train, there was a 3-seater bench, and on each side, there was only 2 people on the bench, one on the window, one on the aisle. And it was a man and a woman, and they were both of equal and sizable girth. Right, so I had them like pinned up next to each other, apples to apples. And I was looking at the situation, and funnily enough, the rather, hefty woman had her legs crossed and was kind of like shuffled, almost like snuggled into the side of the window. And the man was spilling out like a sack of potatoes, like he was smuggling like a soccer ball in between his legs. And it was a very clear and cut case of like the man was taking up like almost twice as much room as the woman in this scenario. And I kind of think that obviously there's like a structural kind of lesson to this, but I do think actually I'm going to go into bat for men to say that it is a relative and significant contextual piece of information that you have nuts and a penis in between your legs. Like they're just, it just is, right? Like you're going to have to make room for that situation, especially sitting down. And as a result, you're not going to be able to push your knees together for a long period of time. You know, poor men. Hey, they've got it. They can't do that. So anyway, that's my take.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add except to say that a lot of the concept of manspreading to me seems less driven by the notion that like men are taking the space of, you know, a woman sitting next to them, and more so like a reaction to women have to like cross their legs, and there's all these sort of social conventions around for women, and these blokes go and like show their junk basically to the public on the train, and this just, we don't want to see it, and we shouldn't have to see it.
Let's rapid fire through. So, not helping with chores. So this is like the overall pie chart of domestic duties.
In the past, yes, men do less. Now, currently, maybe still on average. In fact, probably definitely yes, on average, men do less. But again, it's the same as the who's the cleanest in the household sort of question. I think there's plenty of blokes who would probably do more than women. And maybe there are fewer of those households, but those households do exist. And I think those households, there's probably great discontent with this notion that men do nothing and they're useless. Because in those households, men do either at least 50% or more. And I don't think they appreciate being tarnished with the same brush.
I think this is a really, really good one, really, really good case study of boomers. Because in a lot of ways, boomers are quite progressive in this space, but in very gendered roles. So like the classic white boomers that I've come into contact with in my experience, the woman will still very much rule domestic duties inside the house, but the man would make up for that looking after pretty much everything else. So there would be much more. The woman wouldn't have to do anything to do with the cars, the lawns, any kind of home maintenance. When things broke, when things went wrong, it was always up to the man to do that, and would also involve like a certain level of shopping outside of groceries. So I kind of think that like we have to look at this as an overall piece, and I think sometimes too often we get focused of what's happening inside the house because it's very visible on a day-to-day. But you know, I do think that things outside the house, you know, is a different type of work and different type of exertion, and I think we've lost that in the conversation in modern conversations. That like that's not a thing, you know. That's not, you can't just mow the lawns once, you know, once a couple of weeks and expect that to be. It's not. It's actually way more than that. I think from what I've seen in a boomer case study.
Well, one part of that too is where these sorts of tasks get like folded into the population of things that are like, oh, you're doing it because you want to do it. That's your hobby. That's your personal enjoyment time, as opposed to, no, like if I didn't do this thing, we'd have like a freaking jungle outside, right?
We have to pay for it. But it is a bit of a coincidence that the rise in male listeners to podcasts probably... What do people do before podcasts when they're mowing the lawn? But anyway, yeah, but that's a good point, though. I think that like there's always this game of chicken when it comes to that, right? It's like, oh, you know, I'd mow the lawns, but it was like, oh, I'd cook on the barbecue, but in reality, like your partner doesn't even know how to turn the barbecue on, right? Like it's just.
So my wife won't like me saying this, but I'll spend some time in the garden doing the various duties in the backyard. I say, well, we need to get like it's going to be overrun by weeds, right? So I like weeds. Like
what? You sure it wasn't I like weed, not I like weeds?
No weeds. Like, so they got pretty flowers. I'm like, no, like, come on, don't undersell like the hours that I've just spent like fixing this garden up by saying that you liked it the way it was, right?
Yeah. The one thing that actually is you know, we talked about this demarcation between men's dirtier jobs when it comes around the house, like mowing the lawn, like getting on the roof to clean the gutters and stuff like that, right? Or taking the bins out. to like more feminine, traditionally feminine things like cooking and cleaning. The one thing I think that really, that still happens even with millennial couples. I think that divide still is, well and truly still alive if you do live in a house. The one thing that has not translated, and this is kind of like 100% hit rate for everyone I know, is ironing. Like, women will no longer, they've taken a stand. I do not know one woman in a couple that will still iron their husband's or partner's business shirts. It's just like, no, that's where I draw the line. I do not do it. Go get it dry, clean and pressed, or do it yourself, but I will not iron your shirts.
I can confirm that I don't even iron my shirts.
Yeah, fair enough. It is a truly horrible thing. And yeah. All right, so forgetting important dates. This is like an old trope. Anniversaries, birthdays, other significant events. What do you think?
100% men can't remember birthdays, events, things like that. 100%. And in fact, I have a story related to forgetting dates and the like. Although it wasn't related to forgetting the actual birthday, but quite famously, I missed my mum's 70th birthday.
Andy.
So the actual birthday celebration was not on her birthday, and it was one of those scenarios where the actual celebration was on either the weekend before or the weekend after. And I can't remember which one it was, but I think it might have been that in my mind I thought it was the weekend after the birthday. But in fact, it was the weekend before the birthday. And so I get a phone call, and I was in the Blue Mountains at the time. They said, "Oh, where are you?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And it's like,
shit.
"Well, I thought it's next weekend, isn't it?" Oh my God, I felt so bad. But now I'm talking to you. I'm thinking back to the occasion where I think I did the same thing to you as well.
I'm starting to understand why you were only entrusted with the Caesar salad for Christmas, because you might not have shown up.
Okay, man, move on. Let's move on next.
Look, it's definitely a male thing. I can't defend men on this one, and it's hard. And I can see the direct inference that a woman would say, well, it's obviously not important enough for you to remember it. And so it is a tough one. And I think it's something that you need to do a little bit better. But I would say that, again, as personality traits go, men are a little bit more disorganized when it comes to those kind of things, those arbitrary points of meaning in in other people's lives.
Well, I think the answer lies in what you described it as just then, as an arbitrary point of meaning, right? Whereas I think for women, birthdays are not an arbitrary point of meaning. They're a critical day.
Yeah, a validation.
That's crucial to showing your commitment to that other person. Whereas I think we are generally, and I say on average, men are a lot more kind of, I don't want to say rational in the sense that women are irrational, but nonetheless, I think men tend to kind of be a little bit more kind of transactional about birthdays. It's like, okay, I've got to do this thing. All right, that means I've got to go to the shops and I've got to get a card or I've got to get some gift or something. It's just another task to tick off. There's not the same level of genuine heart in it than what I think there is for women.
Yeah, for some reason I'm thinking of Sam Bankman-Fried, and I'm like, that guy. It's like, aren't we all Sam in some ways? Like, that guy would have never, he would probably barely recognize his own birthday.
Well, didn't he say in the book it was something like about birthdays, like even his parents never celebrated birthdays, like it wasn't a thing that. So if that's your upbringing,
yeah, I guess so. All right, here we go. Making decisions without consulting. The old captain's call.
I think women do that as much as men.
One caveat to this, and I don't think it's a gendered thing. I think it's whoever, there's a tendency that whoever earns the most amount of money probably feels at a subconscious or conscious level that they can essentially approve their own expenses to a certain limit. And that limit may change couple to couple, but I do think the main breadwinner probably has, whether it's as little as $50 and as high as $1,000, they probably have this idea of like, I can actually just do that. You know, and I think even more so in the world of internet shopping and Amazon and things like that.
I think it depends on what the other side of the couple will let you get away with, right? So it's like if you just said $50 to $1,000, if you can spend, let's say, $50 on something and no one will look at you and go, okay, that's fine. Like, then the other person will do that. And in fact, I had this scenario the other day where I was at Aldi and they had the vacuum sealers, right, on special, or at least, you know, for Aldi, it's like one of those special buys, right? And I was with my wife, and I knew she would not like me buying it, so I put it in the trolley, and I just was like, I'll just put it there, and I'll see if she says anything. And then she comes back and she puts some things in the trolley, and she doesn't react in any way, right? She doesn't sort of.
You are aware, Andy, this is the same strategy a toddler uses when they sneak some lollies into the trolley.
Well, it's a good one. But she didn't say anything. So I thought, I'll just draw her attention to it in case for some reason she didn't notice. And I said, I was like, look, like, you know. And she kind of rolled her eyes. But I kind of took that as like tacit, like it's okay.
Yeah,
like it's
I'm not
like
happy about it, but it's going through.
And then and we had some sort of a conversation about I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was a little bit like, you're such an idiot for wanting that kind of thing, something like that. And so I was like, oh, sweet, like I've got to pass on this. Like I'm going to buy this vacuum sealer, and it's only $50, so we're not talking like, you know, anything big, right? But so we bought it, and when we were coming in from out, you know, like bringing the shopping from outside and stuff. So you bought that? It's like, well, what do you mean? Like you were like you didn't like say anything. Anyway,
that can be worse, almost. You know, like, and look, we all have strategies, right, on both sides of the gender divide of testing it out, right, testing the waters. So like many times I will, because I'm a big hobby guy. I've always got lots of things that I want. I'll almost mention like I've already ordered something or I'm about to in a conversation, but it'll kind of be served up without context or whatever in, you know, adjacent to the conversation, and I'll be putting the feelers out there. How strong a reaction did I get, right? Like, because there has to be some reaction, otherwise you can't, like, you know, submit the expense on the back of a bill kind of thing. But I'll gauge the reaction, and I'll see how it softens the resolve over time until I finally land that purchase. So yeah, it's a strategy on both ends. All right. Oh, this is a good one. Interrupting, cutting off, or talking over others during conversation.
Look, I can only reflect on personal experience, and I am confident that I do it, and I do it in more than I would, and I think this would be true of actually everyone. People would do it more than they would notice that they do it. But that said, I have been in the presence of some horrendous interrupters of the female side of the species, and quite frustrating interrupters. So I'm happy to wear all of my faults on my sleeve, but I don't think it's a bloke-only thing.
Yeah. I think this is something that we came up against on our feminist issue, but I totally agree. And actually, you know, while men get charged with doing this in a more kind of like, I'm on a mission, I'm impatient, and I'm kind of aggressively trying to, you know, get somewhere in the conversation, especially at work, I do think in social settings, women do it more to each other. And actually, I will put my hand up. My partner loves Mamma Mia, the Mamma Mia Out Loud podcast. And every now and then I hear it in the background. I'm curious to see what the other side is listening to, right? And so I've listened to, every now and then I do listen to a few episodes because, you know, it's what women are talking about. And I kind of want to know that perspective. And even on, you know, as the most popular like social society category podcast for women, they talk over each other a bunch. And it is really hard to listen to because it's like Gilmore Girls, it's a wall of sound and no one's really finishing their point, and they're just kind of chirping in over each other, and sometimes, they let it happen, sometimes they don't, and it's so normalized, this kind of fast-paced talking over each other that, I feel like sometimes it's like, it's not as egregious as that Fox News kind of like talking heads like shouting over each other, but it's there, and it's really like jolting sometimes.
Well, thanks, Roger, and you'll have to let me know how the Taylor Swift concert was. You've got tickets to all 4 shows, I understand.
Well, it's if I just sell 1 or 2 of them, I might be in the high income bracket pretty soon. So,
okay, all right, well, over it.